Okay, so everyone's talking about King Charles's health, right? It's like the elephant in the room that nobody in the British media wants to acknowledge. You've got Tom Sykes over at the Daily Beast basically saying it's inhumane to keep Charles in the role, that he should abdicate for his own good and the country's. I don't know if I totally agree with the abdication part, but I do think it's messed up that the palace is trying to gaslight everyone into thinking everything's fine when, let's be honest, it's pretty clear Charles isn't doing great. David Starkey, who's like the go-to guy for all things monarchy, he's got a different take. He brings up the Queen, how she saw her role as a lifelong commitment, almost a marriage to the country. She kept going until the very end, even when she was clearly struggling. Starkey thinks Charles probably feels the same way. I mean, this is a guy who waited his whole life to be king. He finally gets the job, and then bam, cancer. It's incredibly cruel, right? Starkey thinks Charles will want to see it through to the end, just like his mother did. But here's where it gets interesting. Apparently, Prince William's been pushing his dad to take a step back, arguing that he's more in touch with what's going on. The whole Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor situation a few weeks ago is a prime example. William wanted to go nuclear, but Charles, being all about reconciliation, didn't want to. Then, the nuclear option happened anyway, and it was a total disaster. It makes you wonder if William's got a point. Is Charles clinging to the throne for the sake of duty, or is he just not willing to let go of the power he's waited so long to have? And Lois Perry, she's basically echoing Starkey's sentiments. She's like, look, we're British. We don't do abdications. The one time we did, it was a complete mess. She also brings up a good point about the Queen. When she was alive, whatever the palace said was taken as gospel. Nobody questioned it. Now, with Charles, there's this growing sense that they're not being entirely honest. Starkey then goes off on a tangent about Andrew and the whole trial by public opinion thing. He's not a fan. He thinks it's dangerous to punish people without due process. He brings up his own experience with that, which is a whole other can of worms. He's basically saying that conservatives need to be consistent in their defense of free speech and due process, even when it involves people they don't like. Perry agrees, saying that Andrew and Fergie haven't intentionally tried to damage the monarchy, unlike Harry and Meghan. It's like their screw-ups are just unfortunate accidents, whereas Harry and Meghan are actively trying to tear the whole thing down. Starkey chimes in saying it's ugly to see people kicking a man when he's down, even if that man is Andrew. He says the punishment doesn't fit the crime and that the public shaming has been excessive. It's an interesting perspective, considering everything that's come out about Andrew. Look, this whole situation is a mess. You've got a king who's battling cancer, a palace that's trying to control the narrative, a son who's eager to take over, and a media that's afraid to ask the tough questions. It's a recipe for disaster, and I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. So, Starkey then pivots to the monarchy's place in the country, and it's pretty brutal. He says the worst parts of the Queen's reign are being carried forward. Lois mentioned how continental monarchies are unquestioned national symbols and at the heart of politics. Starkey's worried that our monarchy isn't either of those things anymore. He brings up Charles's coronation, and man, does he hate it. He says it was the first coronation in like 300 years where Parliament wasn't really involved. He calls it some weird thing that made Charles look like a Middle Eastern potentate. I mean, ouch. He thinks it's only gonna get weirder under William. And here's the kicker. Starkey says the monarchy isn't a private possession. It's not up to the king to just decide he's gonna take it in whatever direction he wants. It's a public thing, a parliamentary thing. He says the prime minister should be the key advisor to the monarch, but there's been this separation of the two. He basically accuses leftist politicians of being Republicans who are just letting the monarchy hang itself. He gets really specific, saying that whoever the next leader is, whether it's Nigel Farage or someone else, they need to sit down with the king and tell him straight up that his job is to be the national symbol of the British nation and state, not to campaign for world wildlife or whatever. He even thinks Farage would be a good prime minister for King William, ironically. Then they get back to the whole Andrew title situation. Starkey points out that the only title that was actually removed was Royal Highness. The rest of the titles are in a form of suspense because the only way to legally remove them is through an act of parliament, and they didn't want that. So, he says there was a lot of sleight of hand going on. Lois is like, if she were Harry and Meghan or Eugenie and Beatrice, she wouldn't be sitting comfortably right now because William could come in as king and change everything with one fell swoop. Starkey mentions Queen Margrethe of Denmark, who stripped her second son of his titles to narrow down the royal family. He says he feels sorry for Eugenie and Beatrice because they're in an impossible position. And then he admits he has a soft spot for Fergie. He tells this story about being joint guest of honor with her at some event and how she was completely charming. But he says she's had to live off her wits, and they're in profoundly awkward positions, like hokey-cokey royals, in and out all the time. He even says he feels sorry for Andrew, which is a pretty bold statement. He calls out people for lining up to kick a man when he's down. He says even if Andrew is arrogant and tiresome, the public kicking has been excessive. He also objects to using the word pedophile for someone who was 17. He thinks Andrew has been punished more than he ever would be with a prison sentence. Lois agrees, saying that people know that Andrew and Fergie and their daughters haven't purposefully tried to damage the monarchy, unlike Harry and Meghan. It's just been unfortunate accidents. Starkey doubles down on saying it's ugly to see people taking vengeance, especially people like Andrew Lai, who wrote a book about it. So, yeah, it's a pretty bleak picture. Starkey thinks the monarchy is losing its way, and that Charles's reign is just a blip between his mother and William. He's worried about William being uninstructed and making things even worse. He wants the monarchy to go back to being a national symbol and at the heart of the political process, but he doesn't seem optimistic about it happening. And the whole Andrew situation just adds another layer of mess to the whole thing. It's wild, isn't it? This whole thing just keeps getting messier. You know, it's easy to pile on Andrew, and yeah, he screwed up big time. But Starkey's right, the guy's been basically erased from public life. What more do people want? It's like, forgiveness isn't even an option anymore. And the thing is, this whole situation with Andrew, with Harry and Meghan, it's all feeding this narrative that the monarchy is out of touch, that it's just a bunch of privileged people living in a bubble. And Charles, I gotta say, he's not exactly helping himself. I mean, all this climate change stuff, the organic farming, it's fine if that's your thing, but it doesn't exactly resonate with the average person who's struggling to pay their bills. People are worried about inflation, about the cost of gas, and he's talking about saving the planet? It's like, dude, read the room. And William, he's in a tough spot. He's got to modernize the monarchy, make it relevant to a new generation, but he's also got to respect tradition. It's a balancing act, and it's not going to be easy. Plus, you know, he's got his own issues to deal with. His brother's basically gone rogue, his uncle's a pariah, and his dad's dealing with cancer. It's a lot to handle. But the thing that really gets me is the media. They're so afraid of offending the palace that they're not doing their job. They're supposed to be holding these people accountable, asking the tough questions, but they're too busy curtsying and scraping. And that's why you've got people like Dan Wooten, who, whatever you think of him, he's at least willing to talk about the stuff that nobody else will. Look, the monarchy is important. It's part of our history, our culture, our identity, but it needs to adapt. It needs to be more transparent, more accountable, more in touch with the people. And if it doesn't, it's going to become irrelevant. And that would be a real shame. And this whole thing with titles, it's such a mess. Like, what's the point of having these titles if they don't mean anything? If you can just strip them away on a whim? It just makes the whole thing seem even more ridiculous. And it sets a dangerous precedent. Who's next? Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice? Prince George when he's a teenager and gets caught smoking weed? Where does it end? It's like, the royal family needs to figure out what they want to be. Do they want to be a bunch of celebrities, flitting around the world, doing photo ops? Or do they want to be something more? Do they want to be a symbol of national unity, a source of pride, a reminder of our shared history? It's up to them, but they need to decide, and they need to decide soon. Otherwise, they're going to end up like the Romanovs, and nobody wants that. And I gotta say, I agree with Starkey on this one. The monarchy isn't a private possession. It belongs to the people. And the people have a right to know what's going on. They have a right to know if the king is sick, if the prince is plotting, if the palace is lying.